This lecture isn't for people who make their first steps on the path of self-development and have some illusions about gurus or terma, or put the book on the forehead before opening it. They shouldn't watch the following things under any circumstances. I asked the guys to cut this piece of the video and put it in the beginning. So, friends, if you are still a religious person, if the book or terma is sacred for you and Yeshitzaget is like a mantra for you, well, you've got the idea. Don't poison yourself with the nonsense that you can hear in this lecture, because I say crazy things and they are not for everyone. But if you're on the path of self-development about 15 years and you get tired of banging your head against an obstacle, as they say, or knocking your head against a brick wall, so you will be facing just the same problems for 15 years if you naively rely on the open sources that are sold on every corner now. So, friends, I'll tell you an alternative version of the story about Padmasambhava. Please regard me with understanding and compassion. Yes, understand and forgive, you're right. As many people who grew up reading the scriptures, especially when a person feels a religious ecstasy because of reading a specific text, such people will not understand me at all. But I'll explain you why I'm going to tell you about the alternative point of view. Please, assume that our memory is something like a library. So, you consume some information and then store it on certain shelves, and for example, you've been reading for a year, 2, 3 or 5, and the information becomes miscellaneous. And gradually, in your worldview, a shelf containing different points of view appears. Then you move on, evolve, try to go to these places. Thank the gods, in this life, almost every year, I have an opportunity to visit the places connected with Padmasambhava, Milarepa, Yeshitzaget, Machiklavdron, Trisondetsen, so the crowd that was in Tibet at that time. And in these places, you can see exactly how things were going there. Or periodically, each time, being in Tibet, we drive by the place near the Rio where Padmasambhava met Trisondetsen for the first time and burned on their clothes. Even a monument was built there, because Padmasambhava, you see, was quite a character. When you accumulate this information for many years, in particular in this life I've been studying the heritage of Padmasambhava probably about for 25 years. Like it or not, you begin to see the real aspects between the lines about which it's not written in the books. Gradually, you begin to read between the lines the things that one or another author means. So, not to be unfounded, Vale has just told you a light version. It's a girlish version, so to speak. I'll tell you an alternative. It is as follows. When Shakyamuni Buddha came into this world, of course, there had been the previous Tathagatas before, Praguchandra, Kanakamuni, Kashyapa, and Shakyamuni. After Shakyamuni Buddha, Maitreya Buddha will come, about whom I'll tell you later, because, as they explained, the temple behind us is connected with Maitreya Buddha somehow. Am I right? Only with Padmasambhava? And where will be Maitreya Buddha? We'll go to another place. Okay. So, Shakyamuni Buddha, he is a classical Tathagata, that is, he is kind and compassionate, he always said everything in a kind and correct way. But, you know, not all people understand kind language. So, there are people who understand only very cruel words, very cruel speech and some methods which, roughly speaking, put the head in its place only by stick, not by carrot. Therefore, now I don't remember precisely in what scripture Buddha foretold his disciples that after about 250 years, when he would leave this world allegedly to Nirvana, he would reincarnate in this world again, but in a wrathful form. So this form of Bodhisattva will put those who don't understand nicely in their place. In fact, Padmasambhava did such things. He had been living for a very long time. According to one version, he was born not in the lake near the state of Bihar, but his birthplace was Haryana. Now it's the area of Pakistan. So one can say that he was a Pakistani. Padmasambhava lived a long life, about 1,000 years. Of course, it's hard to believe it for our contemporaries, but there are such opinions that he had been traveling in India, Nepal, Tibet and Bhutan for a long time and tried to learn something new, to conquer some demons. Do you think that the purpose of Padmasambhava was the preservation of terma, so that people would find it and become enlightened?
Not long ago, we discussed this subject with Katya. She says, Andrei, are you really critical of the terma? In fact, yes. Please understand, people who believe in terma are extremely naive. So, they think they'll open a book and become enlightened. These people are so-called yogis, devas, perhaps I may say so, or the dummies. There is such expression. They are the people who just believe in absurd things.
Чайники. Знаете, такое высказывание есть. То есть люди, которые верят просто в какие-то абсурдные вещи.
During our trip, we visited sacred places of Bhutan, and you tried to practice. We improve pratyahara every day, right? And how many seconds can you keep pratyahara in your mind? If you can do it for 5 minutes, it's great, right? Well, can anyone do it at least for 10 minutes? Raise your hands, please. 10 seconds? Do you mean not to be distracted by thoughts at all? I mean to turn off all the thoughts completely so that none of them will come to you. If you can do it more than 1 minute, you've already become enlightened. Already enlightened? You see. May I say about terma? I meant not quite this. It seems to me that terma is important for people to understand true study because people rewrite it constantly. And when people find terma, we have something like a landmark. Great. Katya has told us the English version that terma is necessary in order to compensate different points of view by the original sources. For example, there are two Brahmins. One says you need to breathe with the right nostril. The other one says you need to breathe with the left nostril. And a student listens to them and thinks, who is right? This one is good and that one is good. I need to find terma and read what Padmasambhava said about this topic. Actually, friends, I don't want to be ironic in any case, but as I have been studying the minds of other practitioners and my mind for a long time, I know it's so difficult topic that no piece of paper can change it. The more reliable way is to seek the knowledge within you. It's not necessary to rely on terma. Well, you find terma, which are written in the Tibetan language. What are you going to do? Well, at least it's an information that it really existed. Okay, it really existed, no problem. You can go to farming. There, Padmasambhava left a real imprint of his hand. So, we'll go to Nepal and you'll see that he really made an imprint of his hand on the rock. Let's go with us to Tibet, or rather, you will not see it. When some time ago we went to Nepal, and then from Nepal to Tibet, we stopped over at the border, and there is a monastery where Milarepa kept the stone. There was a difficult situation when the stone was supposed to fall down, or they rebuilt something with Richungpa. So then Milarepa took a large rock. I don't know how many tons it was, but it was a huge rock. Imagine that this cave can accommodate how many people? There were about 30 people, right? About 30 people fit in the cave. Can you imagine this size? So, a huge massive stone plate covers the cave. So Milarepa pressed the stone plate with his hands and the top of his head and then lifted it a little. Poor stone plate, he left his imprints there. Why do you need paper terma if you could see the traces of these great practitioners? Okay, no matter. Why am I critical of the terma? Who will translate it? Unfortunately, now all the translators are the philosophers. They don't get into samadhi or pratyahara or dharana at all. They take a text and translate it as it is, as they see it. Let me give you an example. There is a great source, Vimalakirti Sutra. It is translated into Russian language in two versions. The translation Association Ilim. Where is it located, Katya? In Ulan, the Translation Association Ilim translated Vimalakirti Sutra. They translated it so that it's impossible to read. It is translated as close as possible to the original, so you have to guess what it's about. The second translation was made by an unknown translator. Firstly, it was translated into English, then from English into Russian. I found this sutra in the internet many years ago, about 15 years, and we tried to translate it simultaneously from Tibetan English and Sanskrit. Thank the gods, we could find the original in Sanskrit, but we couldn't find a translator for a long time. In the end, in St. Petersburg, we found a translator who started to translate and has translated it almost up to the end. By the way, was a new version of the translation published? Pasha said that there's not much left. No, unfortunately. So, I know how much translators distort the text through their mind. In an ideal situation, you have to know the Tibetan to understand what Padmasambhava recorded on the scroll. Any translator will distort this text according to his or her understanding. Therefore, it's naive to hope that someone will translate it for you and everything will be clear. Well, I'm sorry. So, friends, I wouldn't rely on terma that will help you to enlighten. There is a more reliable option to seek the answers to the questions in you. If you are moving along the path of self-development, not for the first life, and moreover, if you have more or less good karma, there's every chance you'll study one or another technique, just passing it through yourself. If you rely on some do-gooders, understand me please. Of course, I don't want to break someone's illusions about gurus. For example, you have a guru and this guru will spoon-feed something to you, move your jaw and then push it deeper so that you swallow it. And then you'll swallow this fabulous nectar and become enlightened. Friends, I've seen a lot of gurus in my life. I love them so much that I can tell you that the best guru is one who will take a stick, beat your back so that you will start doing something on your own. This is the best guru. And it is naive to think that all of them are so kind and will do yoga therapy with you. Excuse me, of course, those who do yoga therapy thought that I said it about you. No, guys, you are certainly great. Please continue to do yoga therapy, but yoga is about something a little different. I mean the yoga where we talk about the gurus. Please, make your question shorter, I understand you. Now I'll try to paraphrase it to make it short for the video so that the guys can hear it. The point is, if a person begins teaching, I mean our contemporary, he has a guru. He relies on the guru's prestige and transmits the knowledge of the guru, not adding anything from himself. What should do those who have no guru but they have knowledge that they want to share with others? So, where can he get the confidence that this is true? Do you remember I told you about 5 gurus? The first one is your intelligence, the second one is your consciousness, the third one is something like the divine being. So, how to say it's the part of the universal mind or spirit. It's something in your heart that can find a certain resonance. There's only one solution: trust yourself. If you live more or less clean life, if you have no gain from the student, if you are not interested in anything, you will never distort the information for his mind. You will always say what he or she needs. And why am I saying that you will have no gain? If you are an adequate person and if you come across the minds of these students, you will understand that it's just pain, any student. Because all students are tender and smooth only for the first first time. It will take 1 or 2, 3 years. After 3 years, everyone starts going crazy, each in his own way. And they are going crazy to such extent that, believe me, why going crazy? Do you know why they are going crazy? Or haven't you ever faced this problem or don't understand what I'm talking about? I think the ego becomes anxious. Of course, the ego becomes actions. But there is another problem. If a person has a certain karma, like it or not, the karma will manifest itself. How does a person usually live? It can be compared to cosmetics and pharmacy. Imagine, a person has a problem and he is going to deal with this problem in the following way. Every time he has got a headache, he runs to the pharmacy, buys a pill, takes it and thinks he feels better. Every time he has a burn on his face, he runs to a cosmetic store, takes a cream, puts on so much makeup and continues to live as if everything is okay. Most people live in this way, looking only at the outer side of the question. They just hide all the problems inside. As a result, a person has a martial lace like in a swamp. He doesn't touch it anyhow, he thinks it will dissolve and disappear. Nothing of the sort. When a person begins to deal with himself, the only way to do it is to go inside and come to the essence of himself. Whether he likes it or not, he will have to pass through all those murky layers. There are no other options. That's why the adequate teachers in India almost don't communicate with Europeans. Only those who work in the Western market communicate with the Europeans. They built the so-called ashrams especially for the Western yogis, hold seminars, talk to them in English, smile and promote yoga therapy. This is an absolutely Western product. All the teachers that are about the capital of yoga, Rishikesh, are in Gangotri. There are many ashrams, but the Europeans almost don't go there. There they have a very different attitude to yoga and self-development. So now I'll answer your question, or rather the question why the students are going crazy. It happens because that's how the world works. The rotten world creates the rot inside man. And if he wants to deal with himself, he will have to deal with those unsightly things he has. I haven't seen exceptions. I have never met a person who started the path of yoga and at once everything was good. Everyone has a fail by all accounts, and it will depend on his karma if he'll be able to overcome it or not. If he has a strong potential, if life after life, for example, he is an understanding teacher who always promotes altruistic concept, so in this life everything will be okay. He will early embark on the path of self-development, find adequate people, quickly master all the negative qualities that he needs to master, and everything will be okay. As for the answer to your question, don't worry, don't be afraid to believe in yourself. The problem of the relationships between teachers and students is what karma both the teacher and the student have. If a teacher is adequate, but an inadequate student comes to him, the teacher will have to say inadequate things to this specific student, even if he disagrees with these things. Do you understand what the point is? Because otherwise the teacher will have to lie halfway. But the honest person won't do it. That's why the teacher has to say one thing to one person, another thing to another one. And all these things will be right, because all people are different. One should go one way, another one should go another way. It's impossible that everyone will march in one line. But nevertheless, your question is very good. You touched on a good topic, how to make so that the knowledge which passes through you at least won't do harm to the person who is in front of you. How can you find the golden mean? Where can you find the boundary of the truth? Because some truth can kill a person and some truth can make a person even leave the path of yoga. I always remember the case from my life when I was young and very conservative concerning which is right and which is wrong. I have one friend who also had been doing yoga but in his own way. Somehow, I decided to tell him the truth. I caught him somewhere and said,
Do you really think that you are a yogi? You don't do this, you don't do that, you are so-and-so. In general, I told him all the truth, everything that I thought at that stage of development. Then he even gave up doing yoga and said, "You are all just crazy fanatics. What can I expect of you?" And he was right in his own way. And then I realized that we mustn't tell people the truth which can make them cry. So, you should tell people the things in a graduated way in order they can absorb it at their level of development. But gradually, if you are a teacher, if you hold yoga tours, I will tell you one thing that probably will be clear for you. You can say, "Andrei, why every year do you go to Tibet, Nepal, Bhutan? Why do you need it? What's wrong at home? Or why can't you live normally?" But nevertheless, if I need to develop, I constantly need to go to such places. And giving lessons to the students there, I'm constantly scanning the space, and in this space, it's always possible to find new information about a particular place. By the way, do you think why Padmasambhava wrote on the tigers from Tibet to Bhutan? Do you think that something was wrong there? His life was bad there? No. Everything was good there, from all the points of view. But nevertheless, I'm pretty sure that Padmasambhava went to these places not only to leave the terma for future generations, that the translators will translate differently and this will be happiness to everyone. No, most likely, he also went to different places and scanned the space. He was looking for different tools in order to help different people. This morning I've told you that before Buddha Shakyamuni there was Kashyapa Buddha, before Kashyapa Buddha there was Kanakamuni Buddha, before Kanakamuni Buddha there was Krakuchandra Buddha. These are the Tathagatas who lived thousands of years ago, probably even millions of years ago. I realize that you with your modern and civilized mind may say, "How? Millions of years? Humans started to walk on two legs only not long ago, and before that they just grew like animals, ran in the woods after the bear and fought for the corn. Who will eat the pine cone faster?" Well, that's just written in the textbooks. Why are you laughing at? As for Russians, they just sloped the shoe with the bast shoe. Well, it's real. Just listen to these so-called scientists. I can imagine how much I will translate it. To take the shoes. Cut the hamburger, pour Coca-Cola in Snickers, and then eat it. Of course, it's a joke. So, friends, all these Tathagatas left their teachings on the subtle level. The so-called places of power are valuable because there it's possible to get their information on subtle level. This morning, when I told you about Samadhi, I once again saw an alternative point of view about how to explain Samadhi. Do you understand what the point is? So, some of you had to hear this simple information about Samadhi that I explained. I mean, it's reality that is much more real than that one which our collective mind draws as the projection. So, actually, we live in the projection of the mind, but the reality identifies the world as it is. That's why the person who attains Samadhi sees the reality without distortion and delusions. And it is a great value. Okay, guys, you see, we've started with Padmasambhava and already touched upon the issues connected with our dear translators, who are sincerely trying to translate and convey probably the truth to us, the poor. Yes? Does it make sense to translate? For example, you know that I do translations. I'll repeat the question. Marsha lives in San Francisco and from time to time she translates some rare materials from English into Russian. Because there is a small percentage of normal translations, rare translations of the sutras in Russian, Marsha spends a great amount of time to translate these materials into Russian. So she asks if the translators have such problems, if they can't understand what's what, is it worth making efforts and spending time on it? Masha, of course it's worth, because you are also developing when you translate. When your mind concentrates on a particular text, whether you like it or not, you are scanning the space and trying to pass the information through yourself as fully as you understand it now. If year by year you translate a little bit, in 20 or 30 years you will begin to understand the Buddha's teaching not as it was written, but as Buddha said. It is clear what the difference is. After all, you should keep in mind that during the lifetime of Buddha, even no line was written. All the sutras, all the scriptures, all the Jataka tales were written in their first so-called ecumenical council, but it's a strange translation. I'm always surprised what ecumenical council. In short, everything is easier. Approximately how many? Probably 50 years have passed. Katya, do you remember when the first ecumenical council was in Vaishali? After 100 years? 50 years? Probably it was in the 1st century. No, it can't be in the 1st century, because then Ananda was alive and Ananda lived only 250 years. Well, let's say 50 or 100 years after the Buddha left have passed. Ferment began in different monasteries and in different ashrams. Can you imagine how the ashrams live now? Have they faced? For example, it can be compared to the army service. They are different units and each unit has its own craziness. They perceive the reality in their own way. Someone irons boots, someone does the other kind of nonsense, so they go crazy in their own way. Accordingly, the Buddhist ashrams had the same trouble. They began going crazy. So veteran disciples got together and said that it was necessary to do something with it. Then they decided to gather all the disciples who had seen the Buddha personally and to write down the texts. They invited Ananda, and that wasn't easy. First, Kashyapa reprimanded him strongly and kicked out of the meeting. He said, "There is one who is unworthy, who must go from here," and he blamed him for 4 actions. The first one is that Nanda persuaded Buddha to allow women to become nuns. That was an unforgivable act from the point of view of Kashyapa. The second thing was that he constantly stepped on the clothes of Buddha. Buddha was the first, and Nanda walked after him and constantly stepped on Buddha's clothes, and so he tore his clothes. The third action, he brought him dirty water when Buddha was sick. So Buddha was sick and asked Ananda to bring some water from the brook. He took the cup and went as Buddha said. He came to the brook, but there were some cuts upstream and the water was dirty. He looked and saw dirty water. Then he came to Buddha and told him that the water in the brook was dirty, so he couldn't bring it. The Buddha asked him to go the second time to the brook and bring some water. Another went back, the water was dirty. Well, Buddha asked to bring, so he fetched dirty water and gave this water to Buddha to drink, but Buddha was already sick. And there was the fourth thing, Katya. Do you remember? Yes, thank you, sure. When it was time, or rather when Mara came to Buddha and asked Buddha, maybe it's time for you to leave, the Buddha called Nanda and said, Tathagata may be in this world forever, but what do you think? Maybe it's time for me to leave? And at that time, Tathagata was already sick. Ananda said, yes, maybe it's time for you to go to Nirvana. Just think about it. The man who lived 30 years near Buddha was just crazy. Can you imagine it? So, of course, Kashyapa kicked him out and said, Ananda, go to get enlightenment. And don't come to us unless you enlighten. Actually, it was a great blow for Ananda, and due to these unpleasant words, he reached enlightenment. He was crying for 2 or 3 days, and he came back after 3 days, if I'm not mistaken. Then Ananda began to recite the lectures of Buddha that he had ever heard. Why? Because before Ananda, Shakyamuni Buddha had 5 assistants who helped Buddha in his life. They brought food, so helped him somehow. There is also an important point connected with a teacher and a student. Just think about it.
То есть, кстати, тоже важный момент. Вот что касается учителя и ученика.
Can you imagine Tathagata? No? Think about it. It's a guy, 5 meters tall, broad shoulders. He speaks so that birds fall on the fly. Of course, I exaggerate, but he had the voice of Brahma. The animals really listened to Buddha with delight. What is the voice of Brahma? In my life, I heard it only twice. I won't tell you where, how, and why, but it sounds in the following way. You can hear it not with your ears. The voice comes from inside you. So, the voice is so calm, there is so much energy of calm that you know it can't be a lie. In general, it's a very essential voice. And Shakyamuni Buddha always spoke in such a voice, so he was the guy who was incredibly unusual. Nevertheless, the disciples who lived around him, too close, were gradually losing their special orientation and assumed that there is something wrong with Buddha or he could say something wrong. So, they had the doubts. So the students decided to send the fourth assistant from Buddha away and to appoint a new one. Then Ananda was appointed to this position. But Nanda said that he would agree only if Buddha will fulfill his requirements. Well, okay, that's not important. In general, all the Buddhist scriptures, which are directly from Buddha and which you can find now, were written about after 50 or 100 years during the meeting in Vaishali, where we go every year. It is believed all the monks had already had siddhas, so they diminished in size and hid in the hollow of a tree. They were in the hollow of a tree for some days, and there Nanda recited everything that he heard, because Nanda had a phenomenal memory. He remembered everything despite his craziness. He had a phenomenal memory as Yashitsagel, who helped Padmasambhava. Yashitsagel was also, roughly speaking, a secretary recorder. She recorded everything. I understand that sounds peculiarly, but I say it for contemporaries. I'm trying to choose my words. Katya even has changed her countenance as I nicknamed Yashitsagel as recorder. Well, so she was a great Dakini, but with an excellent memory. I wanted to say this. Okay, Masha. When you translate one or another text, if you devote it at least 10 years, at a certain level between the lines you can see the essence of what they were trying to record, not what you read in the words. That is more important. Although all the fanatics, Pharisees, who are accustomed to look only at the letters, will attack me. In any case, this is a very good karma when you can allow yourself to translate a text. It's just fantastic. Those translators who can spend a certain amount of energy putting it in the translation do a really great investment. If you're doing translation, you can help someone to think about more eternal things which are perishable in this world. You should consider yourself very lucky, because the energy that you put into the translation, this is what remains. In this case, we can use the Cossack saying, what you gave, it's yours, what you keep, it's gone. Because if you are born in this world again, you will encounter the scriptures much faster, and that will help you to realize some important things. What about Upasadha? Upasadha or Kadashi is certainly good. If you have the opportunity to practice such things, they are even useful for your health. Even some doctors promote this. If you are fasting for a day, that will benefit your health. But what's the point of that? Many people don't understand it. Ekadashi means not only fasting. Ekadashi means fasting plus, big plus, devoting all the thoughts to self-development. If you don't eat but sit in the office, it's not Ekadashi. Ekadashi means to devote all the day to self-discovery. Do you see the difference? I mean that you should direct all the thoughts inside for studying some philosophical aspects
fasts. Only then it will be Ekadashi. Only fasting is useful just for your physiology. Well, you will be healthy, so what? You are already grown-ups, you realize that only animal health will cause the problems with your head, because you will be healthy and a healthy body has healthy passions. So, you have to fight against these passions. So, anyway, that's true. And today it's Ekadashi. Today it's excellent Ekadashi. Come on, everyone ate very well in the morning. Not everyone. Someone drank only tea with honey. But isn't tea with honey a violation of Ekadashi? Okay, you can do it in Bhutan, it's called here. Yes, I also believe that Ekadashi means more practice and nutrition is necessary to support yourself. Okay, friends, actually, I should say one important thing. Everything that I told you today was a peculiar lecture, peculiar in a good sense, but it is not for everyone. There is such a good concept in yoga. 99% of practice and 1% of theory. Probably it was said about Hatha Yoga, but unfortunately there is almost the same situation concerning reading the scriptures. No matter how much you read, you won't come closer to enlightenment. You'll come closer to enlightenment only if you combine practice and theory, approximately 50 to 50. If you read a lot, you will remain a philosopher who will become a dogmatist. Well, have you ever met philosophers? No? You can argue with them endlessly. They are so... how is it called? Yes, it's like the horses. People put special fixtures on the horses to make them look only in a certain direction. Step to the left, step to the right, they immediately pull bridle reins and the horse starts running only straight ahead. Most philosophers are just like that. They don't even consider the alternative points of view. All the debaters don't consider the alternatives. It's useless to argue with such people. Of course we can. I'll repeat the question. So, for example, now in our club we use different techniques for self-development. Some people use yogic concepts, as you said about Pataphijois, just practice, practice and practice. We have such people in our club. They practice, no problem. The main thing is we are moving to more or less wholesome life. Another group of people is interested in some Buddhist things. The third group of people is interested in some Vedic sources. The fourth group is trying to find something in Rodnaveri. Do you know this Slavic native faith? They are also trying to look for the sources there and so on. And everyone is moving in his or her own way. Each of them is right. Why? Because different people need different techniques. Masha asked if we weren't interested in Buddhism and studied only Vedic culture, would we have progress? 100%. Of course, you will attain a certain level. But keep in mind that, I'll give you one example. The concept of Vedic culture is even more problematic thing than Buddhism. If Buddhism has different schools and directions, the Vedic culture, such as it's in India, has more contradictions than Buddhism. Different schools look at things just oppositely. Listening to one guru, you'll be told to go in one direction, another guru, another direction, the third guru, the third direction, and so on. So many gurus, so many opinions. This is a problem. I'll give you an example from the time of Shakyamuni Buddha. When Shakyamuni Buddha began to speak about the Vedic worldview, he faced 6 or 5 persons. How many of them were there? Okay, 6. Purana Kashyapa, Kaundinya. They had complicated names. In general, the point is that they had very many conflicts with each other, but as soon as Buddha came, all of them automatically united and began to persecute only him. It's true. So, to my graduate, I don't know which path you'll choose, but if you think it will be easier, that's not necessarily. Whatever school you choose, you'll surely endure all the difficulties that you'll have to endure on the path. 100%. There are no other options, because yoga as such isn't just sweet candy. Any system of self-improvement will take you to the cleanest on the first stage. It won't be pleasant. But what is to be done? What do I mean? If you face a strange guru who is promoting some strange concepts, this is just because you have karma to endure it.